Okay, so I wanted to talk about AI bots in general, automated bots really in general, and in particular AI bots that are part of the conversation, part of the conversation, especially in Drupal. But this is really an internet problem or condition, I should say. It's not always a problem, and it's one that is important to all of us working on the web. Because all of us are probably seeing this in some way or another to some extent. It's a really hot topic right now. It's one that's come up organically in a lot of different conversations that I've been in, particularly over the past, maybe 9 months or so, but all the way out to maybe a year and a half at this point. And this condition of automated bots has been sort of exacerbated or become, more in line with what people are seeing because of LLMs and generative AI in general. So I thought it would make good sense to organize the talk in this way. So sort of these 4 parts. Really, there are 5 parts here, but the 4 parts are kind of the main parts of the talk. So part 1 is AI bots, the evolving landscape. And this is just the basics, like understanding sort of the lay of the land and what the current status is, what types of bots we're talking about, what are these bots doing, why should we care about, this condition. And then really the key question and where all of this, came from, for me anyway, as a topic, is this question of good bots versus bad bots. What's the difference? How do we know? And that kind of a thing. And then part 3 is proactive and technical analytic skills. How we can get insight into what's actually happening into, our own applications. So we're kind of like diving deeper, as each of these sections moves on. But this proactively managing bot traffic, this helps us to get insight into what's going on so we can make our sound business decisions. And then finally, AI, SEO, and Drupal content strategy. It doesn't have to be particularly Drupal here, but, since we're primarily talking about Drupal, this is the opportunity that's a part of this condition. So it's not all defense. It's not all, dire security for your websites. That's part of it. But there's also an opportunity here to optimize our sites so that they are doing the things that we want them to be doing in this new landscape. So there's there's some proactive, measures that we can take here, some positive opportunity. And then I will just close out with some key takeaways and strategic action, kind of to sum things up. And then, just to note, I'm always on Slack, in Drupal Slack and so on. So, hopefully we can keep in touch and, sort of keep building an open web. So AI bots, the evolving landscape. So part 1. So what are we really talking about here? We're not talking about the little chat bot, the helpful little guys down in usually the bottom right-hand corner of a lot of our websites. It's a conversation though, because we're not talking about that chat bot specifically, but usually those bots are powered by some kind of automated bot that's crawling our site to feed the information, the knowledge base that those bots are working off of. So we are talking about those crawlers. We might be talking about search engines, competitive intelligence platforms, and really I say might because these are all part of the wider automated bots landscape, but LLMs, which is the hotter topic, is like a subset of automated bots. So we're, the conversation that we really all need to be having is about automated bots in general. But lately, we're really focusing on LLMs and AI overview bots and things like that. So really, the way I conceptualize this is that we are looking at a spectrum of automated bots. And at one end, we sort of have a bucket of good bots, and we would all sort of agree that these are good bots, that these are doing things that are valuable to our organizations. And then at the other end, you have this bucket of bad bots that we would all sort of agree are the bad bots, and they're doing malicious things. But in between there is really where a conversation has to happen. And that's where all of the parts of this talk come into play, because you have to understand it, you have to make a strategy, you have to have some insight into your applications and understand what's going on in order to make these decisions. So this is really key, to this topic, but also to like our strategies as, organizations, as university units, as businesses, whatever, it is that we're doing on the web. This is an important part of the strategic conversation that we need to have for the time being and, for the foreseeable future. So it's helpful to look at this in terms of a taxonomy. I did not make this taxonomy up. This is out there, but I, created a chart here that kind of organizes things so it's easy, for us all to have a common vocabulary, right, when we're talking about these things. And this kind of fits with the spectrum, right? So on the far left here, we have APM bots. These are generally good. These are generally performing helpful things on our sites. So oftentimes these improve performance and reliability and security. So you might see these on your sites as Google Lighthouse or Acunetics, Cloudflare, for example. These are generally doing helpful, valuable things. Usually we set these up on our own sites for monitoring and testing and that kind of a thing. But you will see them in the logs, and I'll get to that, what I mean by that, in a minute here. But and then the next set are crawlers. So these are really the explorers. Again, I sort of labeled these green because they're generally good. These are broad link following bots that are usually following a sitemap, or they're following the information architecture, the navigation structure in your sites. We've been seeing these for years. This is nothing new. This is our favorite Google bots and Bing bots and those kinds of things that are being used for SEO and search engine results pages and so on. And then we get into these sort of newer arenas of fetchers and scrapers. And these I marked yellow because these can generally be or will be or should be part of the conversation that you're having. These are not all only LLM bots, but LLM bots do fall into these categories generally. So retrievers, these are single or targeted requests. So, a lot of, like, you've probably heard the term RAG systems or retrieval augmented generation. Information that you can augment, let's say like a chat GPT with, that maybe has to do with your company, your organization, and you're going to have it, process that information as part of its results that it's giving you. So if you were to ask, let's say ChatGPT a question, say, do some, competitive analysis for me on XYZ, and it goes out and it, checks a bunch of different websites, that's one of these fetchers, right? So that's the behavior that makes them up, and that's how they're used. These are not brand new. We've seen these with like pingdom tools and like Facebook external hit for quite a while. I'll talk more about those bots in particular in a little bit. But so generally that's like the fetchers category. And then we have scrapers. Scrapers are similar, but we kind of coin them as like really aggressive fetchers. So they're not going out to answer one question that you ask it in Google, right? But they're often looking for entire data sets, literally like training the LLMs, right? Like this is where we see all of our favorite, chat GPTs and Geminis getting their information and training their LLMs. You may or may not want that, right? So like that's why this is that middle area where it's part of the conversation that you have to have. And other uses of these might be like academic paper harvesting. If you're a publishing house or university, you maybe have seen these or this type of activity in your logs, hitting your sites, and that could be scraping those or harvesting that academic research, for example. And then finally on the far right, you have the red ones, and this is kind of that general bucket of like, malicious bots, right? So these are bots that we know are just out for no good. They're disrupting services, stealing data, manipulating systems. They might even be trying to, hack into your site or, fill up your web forms, or, you probably, whether you're aware of it or not, have had, some form of like botnet DDoS activity on your sites. It's more common than not anymore. And so this is that, that final sort of agreed on bucket of malicious bots. Right? So that's the taxonomy. So for example, you could have, you could see in your logs 2 different types of Google bots, right? And on the left in the green over here, we have our standard Google bot, right? The one that we've been seeing for 20 years, and it's evolved and gotten smarter and better and all that, but it's doing the indexing and the ranking, and ultimately this information shows up in the Google search index, in your search results. So in that standard, SERP page, right, with your search engine results. And nowadays, more often than not, you'll see like an AI overview, Gemini, generated AI overview that's at the top of those pages, depending on the type of question you ask and how you ask it. I've gotten to the point where I know how to ask, the questions because I like those AI generated overviews at the top, but that's all powered by Googlebot, right? And then on the other side in yellow, we have what's called Google Extended, for an example, right? And so you might see this, this automated bot in your logs, or you may see this crawling your site. This has nothing to do with search, but ultimately, if you sort of follow the arrows down there, you see that information ultimately from Google Extended is training Gemini, right? Used to train Bard, and then Bard became Gemini, and now it's training Gemini. So that, literally these are like 2 different bots that have 2 totally different objectives, and they don't cross over generally. So, you have different ways of handling this sort of different functionality. So what are these bots doing? They're doing a lot. Is the bottom line. So this is just a sample recently from earlier this summer. This is from the Akamai report from June. And Akamai, if you're not familiar, is one of the leading WAF and CDN providers, particularly for enterprise web. And so this is a sample from their data, right, from what they're seeing on the servers that they're protecting and working with. So they have such a large footprint on the internet that it's a valid set of data to use as like sample data for the whole web, is what I'm trying to get out. And so so this is a really good sample of what we're seeing across the web in general. So without going into all of these, a lot of these, you'll recognize a lot of these products and services. Amazon bot, Apple bot, Byte Spider is very, very prevalent. This is TikTok's bot for training its AI models. You may have seen or heard about Facebook External Hit, which is another example. And this is every time somebody posts a link or shares a link in Facebook, Facebook goes out, finds that link, maybe grabs a description or some metadata, maybe a thumbnail image, and then creates that nice little card, in the Facebook post. And so that's what, that would be one of those fetchers, really. And Google Cloud Vertex bot. So this is out just powering Google's Vertex platform, which is an AI, a platform for Google customers to, create LLMs, basically. SEMrush, a lot of people here are probably familiar with SEMrush. It's just out there collecting data. Meta External Agent is training Meta's Llama LLM. So, on and on and on. There are a lot of these bots out there, and they're very, very aggressive in a lot of situations. But it's good to just have an understanding that, they're doing a lot of different things on a lot of different sites. So real quick, like by the numbers, 51% of internet traffic right now at this point is automated bots. 51%. So that means humans are the minority on the web. Not quite, but almost 20% of all web traffic right now is training LLM crawlers, or is training LLMs with those crawlers. And then bot traffic has grown over 300% in the past year. Another way of slicing up that data looks something like this. So human traffic is now 49%. LLM training bots are 18 to 20%. Those real-time fetchers, that RAG functionality is another 4%. And then we have all kinds of other automated bots that are out there in that 29%. So I couldn't resist doing a little bit of a projection, a little bit of a crystal ball here, but I use generative AI, which is very smart, we all know, to kind of output a projection for the next few years. So this is kind of the last, 5 years and the next 5 years. But if we're looking at the history of the past 5 years of these 4 types of internet traffic, we can, with some smart Gemini, we can sort of project out what this trend might continue as for the next 5 years. So in blue is human traffic. We can see that as sort of a slow, steady decline, percentage-wise. And this is, of course, as the internet continues to expand. In green, we have good bots that are generally staying, about the same with a little bit of a decline. LLM and AI bots, of course, are on a massive uptick. And then, of course, it wouldn't be the internet without, an uptick in malicious bots doing those malicious things. So the grand narrative here is, why should you care, right? And because this is the landscape, this is the environment, this is the internet universe that we're all functioning in now. You have to know what they are. You have to know what they're doing. You have to know what they're doing on your site, and you got to put together a strategy because you can't avoid it. You can't avoid it anymore. People have asked me, like, is this a problem for everybody? And it's not. It doesn't have to be a problem, but it's something that you definitely need to have a strategy around. So it may be a problem, and it may be an opportunity, right? It depends on your organization's position and what you're seeing on your sites. But these things are not just picking certain types of sites, like they're going after the internet, right? When they find something that they want, they stick with it. So we get skewed web analytics. There's, of course, potential for content or intellectual property theft. Evolving brand erosion can happen. Increased infrastructure operating expenses. And, of course, security and performance risks. All right, so let's talk about knowing good bots from bad bots. This is part 2. And so this is a little bit deeper dive. This is really the question that started all of this. Customers, colleagues were seeing all kinds of new bots hitting their site, and some of them are, letting you know what they are. Some of them aren't. And so the whole conversation started like, well, what is all this doing, and what's a good bot, what's a bad bot? It's actually very simple in a lot of ways, at least to start out. A good bot is anything that brings value to your organization. So, save for like, the DDoS bots that are in that far right red bucket, really you can be having this conversation about any bots that are out there. So if it's bringing value to your organization, maybe for you, it's a good bot. Search crawlers, monitors, authorized aggregators, that bot that's like feeding the little chat guy down in the bottom right-hand corner of your site, right? And then for bad bots, the opposite is true. So anything that has at best like no real value, at worst it's malicious and DDoSing, botnetting your site. But anything that has like potential risk that isn't really bringing any value, should sort of go in the bad bucket. You're going to have to come up with a strategy for that. So just to, sort of make a few examples, I won't go through all of these. We've, all of us here have probably seen a good number of these, really from both lists. But this is sort of the standard, good bots and bad bots list. So again, like anything in the left-hand good bots column, these are things that are bringing value to our site, right? Bringing value to our organization, to our business. Anything that's having a negative impact of any kind. At the same time, like I've been trying to emphasize, it's not just this like binary set, because there's that conversation that has to happen. But you could see something here in the good bots category, right? Like maybe, well, I won't put out names, but like we've seen security scanners, which that's a good thing, right? It's scanning your site. It's, maintaining that security. What's the word I want to use? Posture, right? Like a good security posture for your site. But maybe it's crawling it too aggressively. I've seen this in the past where we've seen security scanners basically DDoSing a site because they were just not set up properly, or maybe they were going down rabbit holes with search, for example, or going into like file systems, things like that. So there's always, a conversation and some tuning that, that generally needs to happen. All right. So, but really to me, the best way of thinking about this is like, what are the characteristics of good bots? Good bots generally have transparent identification. So I'll show you some examples, but really you can identify a bot usually through its user agent string. Not always the case, but oftentimes. If it's a good bot, it will respect what's called the robots.txt file. If you're in this room, you've probably heard of the robots.txt file, and you can leverage that in a large degree, not always. But a good bot will respect the robots file. Good bots have official documentation, like OpenAI's GPT bot has documentation on their site. Again, anything that's intended to help your business. Minimal impact on performance. So again, like that security bot example, right? If it's not overly impacting your site, then it's probably tuned in a good way. And provides opt-out mechanisms. So there are ways that you can block the site, or block the bot, which kind of goes back to the robots.txt. And then at the same time, the opposite is kind of true for bad bots. So you have obfuscated identity. Bad bots will ignore robots.txt. You can't, there's no documentation on them. They're just kind of like sketchy bots that are out there that you can't really find, who owns it. And again, like anything that's harming your business or not bringing value, and, any bot that's like, crawling too aggressively, again, going back to that security example, bots that, have sophisticated evasion, mechanisms in place. These are all, part of the bad bot character. So long story short, you want to be able to discern good bots from bad bots. So clear user agent and documentation. Your team understands its use case. What is it doing there? Generally, if it's honoring robots.txt, you can find its owner, its provider, it's documented, and so on, right? So, these are the bots that we can monitor their impact and make sure that they're bringing benefit to our sites. We all, and nobody's an expert in all of this, so we have a lot of really helpful resources out there. So, don't try to be a superhero. Like, you need to, do the research. Cloudflare Radar, for example, has a really great verified bots library that you can leverage. Bots that you find in this library, for example, don't necessarily, or I should say, aren't necessarily good or bad. They're just known. So, we have information about these bots, and we can decipher, if they're good or bad bots for our organization. Okay, so let's get into part 3 real quick. I'll try to get through these slides pretty quick here, but really this is all about being proactive and technical and analytical, and using this information to get some insight into what's going on in our site so that we can make sound business decisions. So the first thing you want to do, especially in the Drupal context, is start with Drupal best practices. So this is following Drupal performance recommendations, turning on dynamic page cache, aggregating CSS and JavaScript, use memcache for your database if possible. Be smart about exposed search filters and facets. These can be snaring nets for bots. And of course, like disable development modules like Twig debug and so on. So this is nothing new. This is just kind of like Drupal, best practices for a live production site. We also have increased really great activity in the Drupal community from John, and Martin is now supporting these. We have 2 modules here. The first one is bot blocker. So this will blacklist user agents. So it can be very helpful as a part of your defense strategy. John is also working on facet bot blocker, another module that can be installed and leveraged pretty quickly, like Drupal modules can be. And this one works with like the number of facets, search facets, for example, that a user or a bot can crawl or can use or can set up. And so these are great, quick and helpful tools that you can put into place to kind of help you manage some of that automated traffic if you're seeing that. You also want to customize robots.txt. So robots.txt is, we say it's a polite request. It's not a security protection. And the short reason for that is that bad bots are going to ignore it. But you can see here in this real quick example, these are just snippets from a pretty well structured robots.txt file. And in green on the left, we have some user agents, so like Googlebot and Googlebot image and Googlebot news. We're judging, or we're detecting by user agent there, and we're saying if the user agent is one of these Google services, then we're going to allow it. And you can see we're just allowing at the root, so it's going to be able to crawl our whole site. Again, like at the bottom, we're allowing for Bing bot 2 in this example. And then in the red on the right, this is a way that you can disallow right? So going all the way back to that, Google search and Google extended example that I had at the beginning, you might not want that, Google extended LLM training bot to crawl your site. You might not want GPT bot to crawl your site. So these are LLM trainers, but they're good bots because they're going to respect robots.txt, right? And we can simply say disallow from the root directory there. And then these bots they'll see this robots.txt, which is a file that sits on the web root. They'll see that, they'll respect it, and they'll go away, right? So we have that power with robots.txt. We also have lots of resources out there like the ai.robots.txt project, which is on GitHub. And this will help you, formulate that syntax and structure, kind of put some rules into place for your robots.txt file. It also offers a lot of, known user agents. So kind of like that Cloudflare library, it gives us a lot, like a head start. It gives us some good strategies there to help. You also might want to leverage htaccess. htaccess is a configuration file for Apache. So you can set up rules. And here, for example, we're saying if a request comes in, that's from the Google extended user agent, then we're just going to block it. We're going to say this site is forbidden. And this is the last, rule that we're going to run here. So we can actually forbid through htaccess. But again, if it doesn't have a user agent, or if it's spoofing a user agent, which also happens, then this is going to be, less effective. But really what you want to do ultimately at the end of the day, if part of your long-term project, your long-term strategy is going to be to have some insight into your web logs. So on Acquia, for example, which is hosting, of course, Drupal on a LAMP stack, basically with varnish load balancers in front, you're going to have access to these types of logs. So like Apache access log, load balancer logs. If you have, a separate load balancer in front of your site, whatever, your hosting platform might be, you might want to take a look at your Nginx access logs as well. So this is going to give you that insight and let you know what's actually going on your site at any given point. And then if you look at those logs, you'll be able to see. So this is just a great example here of 5 different automated bots that are doing different things on my site, but I can see that they are here, accessing my site. So I can see, this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets here really. And if you count the comment in each one, that green line, they're each 3 lines, and that yellow line at the bottom of each one, that's largely the user agent. So that's what I'm talking about, where you can actually see these. If it's specified in the request, you'll be able to see it in the logs. And so the top one, we're seeing that GPT bot is crawling our site. There's that documentation link where they're, sort of identifying themselves, and they're saying, here's why I'm here, here's what I'm doing. If you wanted to actually, go to that link in your browser, you could, and you could find out all about, what GPT bot is doing on your site, right? So this is generally a good bot. Whether or not you want it crawling your site that's that conversation that you need to have with your organization. But it's detectable. We can see that it's there. We know what it's doing based on the frequency that we see it in the logs. We can see how often it's here, when it's here, and that kind of a thing. And this is like Apache access log example here. So, anyone running, Drupal would have access to this log, depending on your, your server setup and where your logs are and all that. Like you would, talk to your people and be able to access this, or have them access it and let you know what's on the site. One step further from that, I won't go down a sumo logic rabbit hole here, but you can forward these logs to very, very powerful tools like Sumo Logic. On Acquia Cloud, this is something that you can ask to have set up. Either, if you have a TAM, the TAM can help you understand what's going on in your logs. They can give you reports. And at the same time, you can have them forwarded, to your own log aggregating system, if that's helpful for you and your team. But here, this is just those logs that we were just looking at. They're forwarding to Sumo Logic here. In Sumo Logic, you can write queries to search through these logs and find different things, not just, good and bad bots, but all kinds of things that are going on with your site. But in this example here, we were just looking for a malicious IP, any malicious IP. And the way we described that in the query was we said any request that's coming in for like the /login or the /user URLs, and we will just basically put those in a report down here, right? And if it keeps coming back, we're going to put those in a report, and we're going to be able to count the number of them so we can see these malicious IPs. This was actually really helpful back in the days when these attacks would come in all from like one IP address. This is really no longer the case. Usually we're seeing IPs change. So you'll get like thousands and thousands, hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands and thousands of different IPs in an attack. And it makes it very hard, to pinpoint an attack just based on one IP, right? So in other words, the attacks are, continuing to evolve as well. So what you really need in this situation is a more advanced protection system where you can set up a strategy, where you can have that insight, where you can continuously monitor, make changes, make tweaks to adapt to whatever is going on your site at any given time. A lot of this you can set up and you just kind of let it do its thing, and also sort of over time maintain your strategy. And to do that, you need a WAF, a web application firewall. We hear the term web application and API protection, or WAP, a lot these days. So this is just also saying, we also need to protect our APIs. And then the super tool really is advanced bot management. In general, a WAF is a reverse proxy. So it sits in front of your website. When a request comes in, it goes through the WAF, and you can set up rules. You have different tools that you can use there to leverage, different ways of monitoring and protecting your site. Oftentimes these are bundled with a content delivery network, which will help boost performance quite a bit. But generally, we can use these to detect and block bots with a lot of different features. We can configure to always allow in our good bots. And this is a really, really powerful method to protect your content, your resources, your bandwidth. So, in one situation, we had a university site that was getting hit by tens of thousands of automated bots. They were questionably formatted in the logs. And so we had the WAF team set up what's called rate limiting. So if, any number of requests were coming in from, a certain IP, we could limit that. We looked for malformed requests, and we could block by that. Invalid packets. So we're looking also like lower in the stack at the network and transport layer, catching packets that can't be trusted, even before it gets to the HTTP processing level, and also blocking by IP4 address. You can leverage like known DDoS culprits with malicious IP addresses or site ranges, and block by that. You can also, the flip side of that is to allow, sometimes you're in a situation where you can only allow and create an allow list for certain IP addresses. So there's a lot that you can do with a WAF. Nowadays, the sort of gold standard is called advanced bot management. And this adds on, this is like, WAF and bot protection for 2025 and 2026 and 2027, because we're talking about these really advanced features and functionality using AI in a lot of ways to defend against AI. So we're talking about behavioral and biometric analysis, using machine learning to just look at like the behavior of bots and kind of make an assessment if it should be blocked or not. Real-time threat protection, so or threat detection. So it's like always on. These have tools built in to distinguish good bots from bad bots. Granular traffic control, protecting against application layer attacks, reducing infrastructure costs, of course, as a result of making sure that we're not having all this, like wasteful traffic coming onto our site. So this is really kind of like the gold standard of what's possible in like defense and like a proactive strategy. And this is what you want, right? Like, so why should we be prioritizing this? This is proactive security. We're improving our performance usually. It's all tied in with customer trust and experience. Regulatory compliance is top of mind for almost all of us. Competitive advantage, and of course, cost savings. On Acquia, we have Acquia Edge, WAF, and CDN. We have this product family. You can certainly add on a bot manager. So that advanced bot management, that's something that you can get on the Acquia cloud. We're seeing this continue to evolve. So we're seeing a lot of these WAF providers starting to come up with products that will allow for like payment for LLMs to crawl the site. So you can set up a payment required response and say, accessing this content for LLM training requires a royalty agreement. So even the bots can't get through until that royalty agreement is put into place. All right, and then so finally part 4. So, we want to make sure that we're doing plenty to defend our brand and stay in this sort of defensive and aware posture. But there's more to it as well. There's a proactive and strategic opportunity here. And really, this is all about content strategy and using some tools to make sure that we're appearing well in LLMs and that that traffic that we are driving to our site ultimately is going to be beneficial to us. So really, we have this phenomenon, which is low click. The low click phenomenon, we call it, or zero click phenomenon. So this is the situation where you might still be seeing high search impressions, but your click-through rate is very low. And this is because largely people are getting their answers given to them or generated for them by AI. So it's usually in like an LLM UI like ChatGPT, or it's an AI overview response in a search engine results page. We can take some steps to use this to our advantage and to make it part of our strategy, basically. And if you think about it, if you have a lower click-through rate and higher conversions, so you're still successful in the conversions, that's actually an increase in your ROI and a better use of your team's resources. So it really can be quite an opportunity. In order to make the best of this opportunity, we want to include these in your content strategy. So you want to be thinking about auditing your content to answer real questions. So the questions that your customers are asking, make sure you have those answers as a human would want to receive those answers really laid out nice and cleanly in your content. Leverage structured data for AI. So Drupal does this very, very well out of the box. focus on high intent queries and users. So if you think about it, people are getting a lot of their shopping around done with AI. Those that do land on your site are these high intent and high intent for conversion types of users. You want to optimize your metadata like titles and headers. Ensure you have clear CTAs throughout your site, especially on those important landing pages. And then you have tools, just like a lot of the other points that we've talked about. You have tools that are available to optimize your full user experience. One of those tools that's increasingly powerful anymore is Conductor. This is an article that I wrote a while back, and we're going to update it again very soon. But this is actually bringing in the power of AI to actually optimize our sites for AI. And how do we do that? We have some built-in functionality in Acquia Content Optimization, which is powered by Conductor. And we have an LLM visibility-focused writing assistant. So we can really effortlessly create quality content at scale as we're generating this content in our site. This gives us insight and reporting tools that can tell us if something is going to work well in an LLM environment. We also have the AI topic map, so we can actually see how our website content is seen by AI, right? So the AI topic map understands really how LLMs see your content, and it surfaces your next high impact content topics through AI powered analysis. So in other words, if you have content that's maybe missing in your site from like the AI perspective, these tools will help you to fill in those gaps, and you can write those articles again with the help of Conductor and make it optimized for LLM display, either in a like a ChatGPT UI or in, let's say, like an AI overview environment. So these tools, they really help you do a lot. They help you track visibility across search engines as well as LLM engines. They'll help you unify your global strategy. They'll help you not just find gaps in your content strategy, but also close those gaps. So kind of keep that conversational flow about your products and services in place. They'll help generate authoritative content to help fill in these gaps. And then they'll also generally allow your digital team to quickly pivot. So when these gaps show up, when optimization opportunities arise, we can leverage these tools to get that content written. And we see these tools showing up in AI and Acquia Source, for example. So we have the writing assistant that's going to be a part of Acquia Source. We have the AI-powered content creation, which is also going to be part of Acquia Source. We can see Acquia Source at the booth at DrupalCon. And so really, this is what your content strategy should come down to. I kind of like this slide. I'm a big fan of sports, and it sort of looks like a football play. But really what this is illustrating is that you have your client web user, right? So they're out there doing some research on whatever it is that they need to buy, or the next product that they want to try out, for example, and they're running this search query. So the search query is here in the diamond shape, and really they have two options, right? So they're either going to search with their favorite search engine like Google, let's say, and in that case they're going to get an AI overview usually. If not, they'll get some search engine results going down the page, or they might be having that conversation with an LLM directly, like ChatGPT. But either way, they're going to be getting AI generated results, right? So that's that green box there. So no matter how they're searching anymore, how a user is searching, they're going to get AI generated results. In orange, you can see the arrow that goes down. This is your click-through rate. So these users may or may not ultimately click through to get to your site so that you can do whatever that conversion is for your organization. Hopefully they do click through. But this red line, the red broken line here, the dotted line, this is really the critical part. So you can be using these tools like Conductor, like Acquia Content Optimization, to be optimizing your site so that the content that you have on your site is presented, as in the best ways possible, in the most accurate ways possible, in that LLM response display, right? And also for those users that do click through, so your site is, optimized to the best way possible to actually make those conversions happen, right? So there's kind of like two different parts of that optimization, and both are really key, to getting that ultimate conversion that you're looking for. So just a few key takeaways. AI bots are increasing. Bot management is crucial. You want to differentiate bot traffic that's hitting your site and use AI wisely in Drupal content workflows. We have a lot of tool options. So we just want to make a plan. You want to implement a bot management strategy and then watch your weblogs for data and see if that expected behavior is what's actually going on. And then you want to implement a valuable content strategy. And then you can watch your web analytics to confirm that you're getting the results that you want there. And then it's simply, repeat until you see the favorable results that you want to have. So we're continually trying to offer some leadership here, some good guidance, some strategic guidance. This is a new blog series that we're putting together. Actually, several of these blogs informed the topics of this talk. So now you can kind of go full circle and go back to reading those blog articles and getting this valuable information. Check back to the blog series often because we have more content coming out. Please reach out if you want to continue the conversation. I'm always on Slack, on Drupal Slack. I'm GTO1, and I appreciate the time. And thanks again.